Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. As always, my name is Jake Ricker, and I know it's been a little while since we've had a video out, but I have a very special guest joining me today that I cannot wait to introduce to you. He has got the longest list of accomplishments. He's worked with multiple NHL teams. He's worked with a ton of other sporting venues as well. He's won multiple awards for all of his different things that he's done within the sporting industry. And he's one of the nicest guys that I ever met. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the one and only Jonny Greco. Jonny, how you doing today?
Oh man, Jake, I know you're going to school for broadcasting, but I think you're ready to rock, man. That kind of intro makes a dude feel good. I'm ready for this today, man. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming on. So first things first, I know you have had a lot of different titles over your years and the kind of general thing you do is video production and making a team's intro, if you will. So if you could, for our listeners who may not know you or know exactly what you do, what is kind of a general overview of something you would do for an NHL team? I know I'm asking you to squish a bunch of things into one little answer here, but if you could give people an overview of what you do, what would it be?
It's a good question. So I've been blessed on this journey, starting pre Full Sail, but at Full Sail, getting my film degree, getting into sports, and through video early on, video production and storytelling there, but truly it building out into the fan experience, right? Like we try to create an experience that's memorable, that's compelling, that connects an audience to a brand or a team or a client, and using the art of storytelling as you do that. And what does that mean exactly? Yeah, I've been in control rooms where it's ready, camera one, take one, insert the font, stand by to fly to red. I've done those kind of things in different control rooms for different teams. I've been on sets where we're producing really cool opens, working with athletes and actors and things like that, developing mascots, characters like that, and working with athletes, which is really cool because as a sports guy, I know you and me were talking about this before, Jake, like we love sports. We talk about this anyway. So if we can find jobs that pay us to be around sports and watch sports and talk about sports and produce sports, we're doing pretty good. So I've been very blessed to be in sports entertainment. And even though I know we're going to talk hockey, Lightning, I know how you feel. I know represent Tampa. But the truth is, for me, it's all storytelling and it's experiences, whether you're at Disney World or you're at the zoo or you're picking up a ice cream sundae somewhere. Like it's all this experience we go through. And sports entertainment to me is it's just like that. How do we enhance and create smiles on the way as we roll?
Right. Well, it's great to hear you say that too, because I know for me, we'll get into more of the Lightning a little bit later, but
Sure.
my favorite memories, come from not just the game itself, but the experiences you have of going to the game and the things that you do, just like you were talking about. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about how you got, so we mentioned you've done, I mean, almost everything. You've worked for baseball, you've worked for basketball, the WWE, you've worked at different sporting venues, but I want to talk about hockey specifically and how you got your start in hockey. So I know your first job was in hockey anyway, was with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So what was it that brought you or got you interested in wanting to work for an NHL team, and how did you get that first job?
When you're starting your career, which I would say we kind of start our careers way before we're even in high school, like you're just doing what you love, you're creating, you're finding your path as you go. I was always pulled towards that sports, right? And films and movies. And my first internship out of Full Sail afforded me the opportunity to get an unpaid internship in baseball. And I was like, I like all sports, let's do it. Did baseball, loved it. Because of the internship and the hard work I'd put in and a lot of luck, before the Blue Jackets, my first real taste of hockey was the 2002 Salt Lake Winter Olympic Games. I had the chance for 3 weeks to go to Utah and work a game I didn't know. Even though I grew up in upstate New York, I wasn't like Western New York where hockey's really runs rampant. Like I was kind of central, and it just wasn't a sport I knew growing up. So I had the chance to go create an atmosphere and be a part of a team. And oh, by the way, it happened to be hockey at the Olympics. And it was like, whoa, what is this game? Like I knew what hockey was, but to see it, to see the international pride, to see the sportsmanship, to see the brutal beauty and elegance of the game, it's just unbelievable to see in person, right? We see it on TV. We love it on TV. you see hockey live one time, you're like, ooh, I'm in love with this game. It's
Right.
an easy sell. So very quickly saw it and was just enamored by it. And I had an opportunity to go work for kind of an upstart team. It was their third season, the Columbus Blue Jackets. So from Florida, moved up to Columbus because you do what it takes to follow your dreams and be a part of a new franchise and help develop and build out their show, their video content, their experience for the great fans of Columbus, Ohio. So I did that for 2 years in Columbus, and that was I really cut my teeth in the game. And I'll tell you, when you work in sports entertainment, when the team's good, like Tampa Bay's been, last 3 years going to the Cup, it makes some things easy, some things hard. When the team's not performing well, it does ramp up the creativity opportunities on our side as sports entertainers.
Mm.
So Columbus wasn't a great team, and we had the opportunity to really like connect with fans and create fun content that resonated. And some of that stuff then still is used today, which is kind of cool when you kind of leave a mark and people, it resonated when they weren't winning, and then it still resonates when they are winning. It's kind of a cool place to be, for sure. So that was the start with the NHL.
Well, and obviously you made a huge impact in Columbus because in 2004, they were named the #1 stadium experience in all of sports by ESPN magazine, which is an awesome accomplishment. And Columbus actually gets a ton of hate, I guess, or hate might not be the right word, but people always talk about how Columbus is not the greatest place to go play hockey. And
Yep.
I know it was a big deal for them when they just got Johnny Hockey to sign with them, because the people were like, Columbus is not a destination to go to. So the fact that you still go in there and make that a amazing place to go watch hockey is truly special, I think. And so if you can tell me a little about how you did that, how you made Columbus a special place for people to come enjoy, because that was even before the Cannon. I believe they bought the Cannon in 2005, and then they officially debuted it in 2007. So I'm not sure if you guys had anything to do with that originally, or no?
Definitely some of the people I worked with did. They were exquisite, unbelievable creators. I wish I was part of the Cannon, because it's one of those things where whether you like it or not, and if you're in Columbus, you love it, and if you're pretty much anywhere else, you hate it. But it doesn't matter, because it's not for the St. Louis fans or the Sharks fans. It's for Columbus fans. It's for Blue Jackets fans. And it's a really cool thing that they get to own and they get to have, right? So I think when you're developing a show for any audience on Earth, you got to listen to the crowd. You got to listen to the audience. You got to understand what makes this community special, the fiber of this fan base, right? These neighborhoods. Why is German Village a cool part of town? Why is Worthington a cool part of town? What Ohio State Buckeyes? What does that mean to Columbus, right? The Crew. I know you mentioned Johnny Hockey. He was just at the Crew game just recently, right? Like he was there and he swapped jerseys with their new star player, Cucho. Like it's really cool when you thread all of the sports and you tie all the sports together. So a big part of creating the Columbus show, and this was a tricky balance because it's Ohio State runs Columbus. It's a big deal, right? It's Columbus, biggest school, great football, great sports, prestigious university, but people want their own independence from it too. So even though there's great pride and people love, the Buckeyes in Columbus, especially, there's also going to be some haters, but it's almost like if you can't beat them, join them. Like, how do we define ourselves in any community? Because even Tampa Bay, right? Like the Lightning, they were in the doldrums for a little while. The Rays were in the doldrums. Then you start to win, or then but really, if you can kind of embrace all the sports and all the factions in the community and sort of just tip your cap to it, right? You don't need to like completely placate to, oh, we're second or we're third in the, like, just understand they're there, acknowledge them, put the spotlight on them, but then like flip it back to you. And it's sort of like a nice compliment to offer people who are trying to do the same thing, right? You're trying to create memorable experiences, through sports, through education, through art and entertainment. And that's what we're all trying to do. And the rising tide raises all ships. The Buckeyes win a national championship and the Blue Jackets go to the playoffs and the Crew get all of a sudden, man, it just puts Columbus on the map even further. So it's not a bad thing if we're all doing well. So absorbing the community, listening to the community, and then creating an objectively fun show with some subjective, specific to Columbus, specific to 614, specific to Ohio, sort of content creation, what that audience would like. And also, this is the trick you learn as you get older, and you're always figuring it out as a producer, giving an audience what they don't know they want yet. Like if you ask them, they may not necessarily know, or they may say things that aren't necessarily even true, but they want to answer. But sometimes you can give them what they didn't know they want yet, and they fall in love with it. That's the magic sauce right there.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
the saying as it goes. And the Lightning are kind of in a similar situation, or they were in a similar situation where none of those Tampa teams were good, and now Tampa is known as Champa Bay. Like with
Yeah.
all the success of the Buccaneers, the
Yeah.
Lightning, the Rays haven't quite won one yet, but they've
Yeah.
gotten very close and are
Yes.
knocking on the door of that. So they've had a ton of success, and I know those teams always bounce off of each other. And like the Lightning just posted a graphic at the start of the football season that I absolutely loved. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's Kucherov. He's like in a little bit of a shooting position, and there's a football going to Mike Evans, like he's catching it. So it looks like he's shooting the ball, which is just fantastic, right? It's that kind of thing. That is really, really, really cool. But
it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome to see those teams working together. You didn't stay in Columbus for too long though. You bounced around to a couple other places, and I don't want to say bounced around because it wasn't like you were there. Even though you were there for short times, you made your impact and made your name known. But the next NHL team that you worked for was the Vegas Golden Knights, who are were a huge team that came into the league. They came in and took everybody by storm with their instant success that they had. So you had a bigger role, if I believe, with the Golden Knights than you did like with the Blue Jackets. What was it that you did with the Golden Knights?
So with the Vegas Golden Knights, I was hired on to, from scratch, build out their fan entertainment experience, right? You're figuring out what's that mascot going to be. You're figuring out what's the goal song going to be. You're figuring out all of it, right? Like, you're going to have an ice crew. What do they wear? Right? Oh, you're going to do a promotion intermission? Cool. What's it called? Right? So you're really kind of starting from scratch. And I'd be remiss to not step back a few levels there, right? Like when I was in Columbus, I was still getting my start, right? I was 21, 22 years old when I started there. By the time I came back to the NHL with Vegas, I'd been really lucky to work at WWE, which pounded me in my head storytelling, right? Creation. I had in Cleveland, when I was with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the organization we were with also started a brand new AHL franchise. They were the Lake Erie Monsters first. The Avs, they were an Avs affiliate before they became the Cleveland Monsters. Now they're the Blue Jackets affiliate. But when the Monsters started, you get to be a part of like a new logo, a new brand, a new mascot, a new goal song, creating entertainment. And in the NHL space, in the AHL space, you get to kind of have a little bit more fun, right? Minor league sports, sometimes ticket sales are a little harder. Sometimes, you can't lean on players as much because they're going to be rotating. They're going to be coming up and down. So you got to really build up different types of characters that aren't always your athletes. So I learned a ton and I just had a blast in Cleveland with the Monsters. The reason I got asked to go to Vegas was because the Monsters president, Kerry Bubolz, who's a dear friend of mine, he was also an SVP of sponsorship for the Cavs. We generated good creative energy together. He always thought the Cavs games were fun, and I got to be a part of that. And he always thought the Monsters games were fun, and I got to be a part of that. So when he became the president of the Vegas Golden Knights, he was like, Greco, I want you. And I'm like, I'm working at WWE, and it's kind of amazing. And he's like, it's Vegas. Let's do it. It's great. And he, when he laid it out, kind of the unique opportunity to be a part of a brand new franchise, which nobody gets that chance. And it's in Vegas, which is like, the first pro sports team. Okay, that's kind of nuts. It's just, there were so many weird variables. And sometimes you just kind of like, you throw the Hail Mary and say, let's give it a go. Let's try it, right? So went out there. Right. And it was like Hollywood wrote a script as far as what they went through that first season. The tragedy of the shooting, 500 people get shot 9 days before you drop the puck for the first time ever. 9 days. You spend years planning, months. You're putting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in. And then like right before you're about to go, it's like, something way bigger than sports just happened.
Right.
And I won't equate it to a 9/11, but to the community of Vegas,
it was a big event.
It was really heavy. It was tough. And but it's you kind of roll with it. You understand the power of art. You understand the power of sport. You understand the power of community coming together. And then how do we carry that story, right? How do we tell stories? How do we honor our characters? Then that season goes, they win. And I'm telling all my team, I'm like, guys, like my production team, guys, it's not like this. Don't worry. It's gonna stop. It's gonna fade. I've been part of a lot of bad teams, a lot of last place teams. I'm good at that. And we kept winning. And the first round of the playoffs happened. I'm like, guys, we made it to the playoffs. This is unbelievable. We'll probably get swept. No, we swept the Kings. The next round, guys, second round, there's teams who've been in the league years who never even make it to the first. We win again. And then all of a sudden we're in this final, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe we'll win it. Who knows? We ended up losing. But it was an incredible ride, and it was more important than sport. Again, go back to that tragedy and the shooting, and like it galvanized this community. It gave people something to believe in, and it gave people reasons to be together and high five strangers and hug one another. And sport, entertainment, it really lifted spirits that year, and it carried on into where they are now. But that year, like that part of the world, that part of Nevada, it needed that, and it was an honor to be a part of it. And it honestly felt like we were just part of a bigger service to humanity during that time. And we just kind of tried to stay out of the way and cover the beautiful game as it was. But what a ride. What a historic ride it was, for sure.
Vegas is the exception and not the rule when it comes to expansion teams. It was truly special what they did. I remember even as Lightning fans, we're sitting here going, how on earth are they doing this and just dominating the league? And like you said, making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Nobody would have thought that they could have pulled that off in their first year, which was unbelievable. You mentioned creating the mascot and a lot of working from the ground up with this team. So I have to ask, how did that process go with creating the mascot? Because I know everybody was thinking, oh, well, they're going to have a knight as their mascot. That's the obvious answer here. And then the knights come out, and I can't remember exactly what it is. I know it's like I think it's Nevada's lizard. It's not a lizard, but it's something like that. And it just shocked the world. So take me through the process of coming up with a mascot that threw everybody in a loop and got a lot of attention when it first came out.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. You do your research well, my man. Jake, you were very good. Sportscasting is you picked the right career choice. So you were living it and doing it, my man. So working on a mascot's tricky, because usually they come out and they get obliterated, right? Like, they're awful, they're dumb, they're crazy. The Golden Knights came out, and our very first game, we had a plan to kind of introduce our mascot. But again, as I had mentioned, the tragedy happened. It was like, our first game, we can't bring this character out. That's like tone deaf, right? So we waited. By the way, on the East Coast, the Philadelphia Flyers had a little known character, big, bright and orange, also come out that year, named Gritty. Hard to compete with that one. That was talking about lightning in a bottle. So Gritty came out and shook the world there. In our world, we came out with a Gila Monster. You were correctly spot on. It's the state reptile of Nevada. And we kind of played it. It's like warm-blooded reptile, right? It's like, it's here, and it's but he loves the game, and he's sweet. And even though he's like should be a cold-blooded animal, it's like, no, he's warm-blooded because he's sweet and everything else. So we leaned into a few different ways you can create a mascot, right? If you're the Falcons, we're gonna have a bird. It's a falcon. But then if you're like the Nuggets in Colorado, it's like, no, indigenous to this region is a mountain lion, so we're gonna have Rocky, right? If we're gonna Philadelphia, we're gonna create a fanatic. It's like, well, what's the Philly fanatic? Like, so you can there's different ways to go with your characters, and there were sort of two paths going on at the same time. So we came out with Chance the Gila Monster, which was our primary mascot. That was the plan. That's what we were going to do. We didn't want to frighten children. We wanted to just make the game as inclusive as possible. And also, again, tip the cap to the region, right? Like, who else could use a Gila Monster? Like Winnipeg can't, right? True. Minnesota can't. So you try to find something that makes you authentic and original to your region, so the fans can kind of gravitate towards. At the same time, we also kind of, to your point, and put it on the nose, like the Golden Knights should have a knight, right? Everybody wanted a knight. And it's like, oh, Mascots, as we call them, like those are tricky, right? Sparty and Michigan State, like they look kind of scary, and they're like not always. And then when you literally have the face of the performer being exposed, when I say, you suck, you're awful, blah, like you can't fake it. You can't hide behind a mask and be like, whatever. You're very exposed. So we also introduced a Mascot as our Golden Knight. His name's Lee Orchard. He's one of the best performers you'll ever find. And he's literally from England, so he's got the British accent. And like, so we had the kind of the expected-ish, fluffy mascot, but then we had this Mascot that became a big part of the show that we created in Vegas. So it's all characters, right? You have this expansion team. Marc-Andre Fleury, he's a name, he should be good. But we weren't expecting to win. So we were like, well, what can we do that people, even if we lose 3-0, they say, yo, Jake, I was at the game. It was awesome. Oh my God. They did this with the mascot and they did this promotion and the music. Oh my. And you're like, yeah, but did they win? And you're like, no, they didn't win, but I had a great time. Like, that's what you're trying to build. That's what you're trying to create, right? Fortunately, we also did win while we were doing this. And I think
Got
that's
the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, I think that helps, right? So some of those things helped grow an affinity for the brand. So Chance is doing his thing. The Golden Knight himself became a character. We worked with a Hollywood guy to design proper armor. We worked, Lee, fortunately, he could skate, and he had worked in like medieval times in Spain years before.
Oh,
and
wow.
he was a great performer. So we started to create this on ice spectacular, like a mix of Cirque du Soleil and Disney on Ice. And, it just meets WWE. And like, if you watched it quickly from afar, you'd be like, this is corny, Jake. Like, what are they doing? This doesn't belong in hockey. And if you read the comments, which I don't recommend you ever do, people were not very nice. That's okay. We're making it for those people. We were making it for ourselves. We were making it for the great fans of Vegas. We're doing the best we could as we created an experience with all these characters. And then as you're winning, which forgives a lot of things, people are kind of like, well, it's corny, but it's kind of cool. Well, it's corny, but I kind of like it. Well, it's good. And then all of a sudden, you end up going in the Stanley, all the way to the Stanley Cup, and the New York Times writes an article about what we're doing, and NPR wants to do an interview about what we're doing. And like, NBC's covering the show before the game. Like, not a lot of leagues do that. And they were making a point to be like, okay, enjoy the show. And they would just take our line cut and put it out there. And you're like, you've got Doc Emmerich, one of the greatest of all time, and I'm sure you'd agree, saying like, okay, I'm going to shut up, watch it. And it's like, he's not going to talk.
No, you did something right when you did that.
Unbelievable. So a lot of luck, a lot of hard work. But sometimes, you just get, there's this like sort of magic that happens. And that was definitely part of that Vegas experience, without a doubt. I was very, very grateful to be a part of that journey.
Well, you described that perfectly, because I was fortunate enough to go to one of the Golden Knights games before. So I got to see all of that in person. I went to a Lightning game when the Lightning came to town to play them. I actually went for my 21st birthday. So
it was year one?
I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it might have been year 2.
Okay.
But I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was exactly that. I remember when I first saw it, everybody was thinking the same thing. They're like, this is a ridiculous, crazy production. What on earth? We've never seen something like this before. Right. When you're there, I remember the whole time just being memorized at all the things. I remember walking to our seats, and the drumming line was walking across doing and I'm sitting there recording it, watching it. I cannot believe I'm in a hockey game right now and watching this whole band march through the arena. And the way I thought of it too, the introduction, it was like, when the Lightning get into the playoffs, and for most teams, they ramp up their video production, their intros. That's when it gets exciting. They add new things. And for Vegas, it was every night was like a playoff game.
Yes.
And the fans loved it. And I saw it like you're embracing. That's what Vegas is, right? When you go to Vegas, it's all these shows and fancy, crazy different stuff. And that's what you guys did with the introduction, which I loved. It is definitely different when you're there in person versus watching it on TV. TV doesn't do it justice, but it's a special, unique thing to see for sure.
I'm glad you were there and got to see it in person, because it is a spectacle. It is cool. And, I got to give a shout out to the Tampa Bay Lightning, one of my dear friends and mentors for a really, really long time, the vice president of all the entertainment and production, John Franzone, who forever I've looked up to, and forever I've kind of asked for leadership and coaching to. Before I went to Vegas, I went to a couple different friends, and one with my buddy Billy in Pittsburgh, and one was John. I was down there for WWE WrestleMania, and I was like, hey, can I come see your show? And he's like, come on in, look at the script, sit in the meetings, hang out on headset, just, absorb it all. And I just sat with him and I picked his brain while he's calling it and putting it all together. And he was so gracious and so kind. And he is to this day. And he gets it. He puts on a great show. He understands the brand. He understands the Tampa fans. And kind of to what you said too, Jake, he also knows you turn it up in the playoffs, right? That's when they get different projections. They get the scrims. But one of the coolest things in all of sports, like the cannon, Tesla coils, baby. Like, It's
Yes.
just a thing you gotta see. It rattles your bones. And it took them a while to get it all sorted to be where it is, but it's like no one else can have that. That is the Tampa Bay Lightnings, and it's cool and it creates a moment. And if we're building these things in games that get people to say, Jake, we got to be there to take a picture. Jake, we got to see this thing. It happens. Like, that's a pretty cool element because Kucherov can score goals. He may play, he may not. The Tesla coils are going to show up every time, right? Thunderbug's going to show up every time. When you can have those characters in the experience, it buffers and protects and insulates, the experience a little bit. If the players or the team or the game that night doesn't kind of follow the script you hope you have in mind.
Right. Absolutely. That is spot on. And the Tesla coils, there's something special. I know the Lightning have done all different kinds of stuff with their arena because it used to be just a pretty basic arena. They added the organ in there. They've added the Tesla coils. They actually now for the playoffs, I believe they have smoke behind the goals. They've done all different kinds of stuff. And it's really cool to hear that you got some inspiration from Lightning to bring that back to Vegas. They do a fantastic job. I know their video team recently with some of the recharge episodes that they've put out. I don't know if you've ever seen those before, but they've been winning Emmys for those as well. I know your team has won a couple of big awards as well for stuff like that. So that's really cool to hear. Now, you also worked with another expansion team, though, going to the Seattle Kraken.
Yes, sir.
So I have to ask you about this too. I don't know if how involved you were with any kind of the operations, but the Kraken stole one of our favorite players from us in Yanni Gourde. So I won't forgive you.
Oh yeah, I know him. I know him well. He's amazing. The Joker.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Gourde's my sister's favorite player too, as well. So she was devastated when that happened. But I'm assuming since you were with Vegas, that must have helped a lot. You already had the know-how and some of the experience of working with a new NHL franchise that you could bring to that team as well.
Yeah, excuse me. It was again an honor because it's not even a once in a lifetime thing. You get to work with a new team. So I was with Vegas. I had a chance to kind of go back home to New York and work at the Garden. So I was with the New York Rangers, original 6, for 9 months. It was quick, and pandemic hit and everything. So it was a tricky time to be there. But man, getting to work with world-class human beings in New York City at the Mecca, it left a big mark for me, right? So unbelievable experience. Excuse me. Then I had the chance to go to Seattle, right? They reached out and they said, hey, you worked at Vegas. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not just the Vegas guy. Like, I've done other things. And, I'm really proud of, my path. And Vegas was cool. And Vegas needed the Vegas thing. But Seattle's going to need a Seattle thing, right? So I need to understand, just like Cleveland needed a Cleveland thing. And, understanding kind of your earlier question about being in Columbus, how do you, come into a team and it's like you listen, you study, and then you keep listening and you study and you talk to all the great teams that are around. So I talked to the good people at the Seahawks and the Mariners and, the Thunderbirds and the Silvertips. And you're trying to learn, like, what works here? What doesn't work here? The Sounders, hey, they've got a really cool march to the match. Like, is that going to translate for what we do? So all of these groups, the Storm, they all met with us. We talked to them. We picked their brains. This was all happening in a pandemic. So it was a very different animal. And the $1 billion arena, Climate Pledge Arena, is being built at the same time. And the league figured out we can't let them draft the way they drafted in Vegas. So you had a whole lot of things working with you, working against you, everyone calls it this confluence that was different than the Vegas experience. But we got here, pandemic, what do you call it? Supply chain issues. That's the word. Like, if I never hear that again, I'll be fine. Because, like, oh, we have all of our lights ordered. Cool. Oh, there's supply chain issues. We're gonna have to wait until game 10. And you're like, no, like, we have only one game 1. We want it right. So, it was a bumpier takeoff, but it still was majestic and incredible to do it, in the middle of a pandemic and to build a team in the middle of a pandemic on the ice and off the ice, and to order gear and to make it work as things are being, erected around and buildings are being built. It was something I'm really proud of, right? And different experience. And by the way, the Kraken kind of played like an expansion team should play. Like some nights you're like, these guys are good. And some nights you're like, they're getting there. And, with the right couple picks here or there or trades, and, they're going to keep working at it to become, a firepower machine like Tampa Bay, where it's like every year they're kind of expected to be pretty good because they've built it. It takes time, right? So it was an unbelievable experience to be part of the 32nd franchise and the 31st franchise. I'll never forget it. I'm super grateful that I had a chance to lock arms with some of the best in sports entertainment in an amazing city, and very excited to do it. Like, hockey's a great game, like we said, and to be a part of building out experiences and to be a part of that fraternity that is hockey, not just NHL. Everyone looks after each other, and there's just, similar to baseball, the traditions and kind of the code of being in a league. Like the NHL definitely has it. Hockey definitely has it. And, the fact that I've been able to be a part of it a few times and be around just incredible human beings. It's why we do what we do, Jake. It's why, I'm behind the scenes. You're going to be more in front of the scenes as your career trajectory takes off. But we love the game. We love to be around it. And it's been an honor. It's fun to talk about it like we're doing right now.
Yeah, I'm sure doing both expansion teams was a unique experience. And I guess I'm going to have to watch when you're getting hired, because if the NHL ever decides to expand again, that's probably how I know when the new expansion team is going. But you've mentioned a couple of times throughout this interview how, like, you want to make an impression for the fans, right? The fans create that unique experience, and listening to them can help build that, especially with a new team, can build, a partnership almost with them. And then you've also mentioned in an interview before that the NHL, they make the first impression, right? But then the team is the one that comes in and makes that second impression. And I love hearing that too, because I know me and my partner, Michael, who's unfortunately not here with us today, we always talk about how the NHL sometimes struggles with that, getting themselves out there and making that impression. So what do you think the NHL could do maybe better? Or what would be your advice to somebody that's trying to make an impression and market themselves?
Man, that is an intelligent question. And there's probably a lot of ways to go about this. And I'll touch on a few different things. Like the best thing you can do is understand, we need to grow our brand, right? We need to build this out. We need to be more accessible. We need to be more inclusive. We need to find ways to let people see the game, the beauty of the game, right? Like people, it's like, oh, hockey fans are hockey fans, and that's it. It's like, or how do we expand it, right? Like kind of what the MLS did with soccer, community soccer, et cetera. Like it didn't happen right away, but it ended up blossoming to where the MLS trajectory right now is strong, right? Way back in the 80s, way before you were around, Jake, David Stern, right, commissioner of the NBA, he saw like we need to change again, kind of like the how this game welcomes an audience, and we need to grow the game, and we need to figure out players we can kind of hang our hats on, and characters like a movie. People want to cheer for characters. People want to boo the bad guys, cheer the good guys, right? People know Mickey Mouse because, man, when Mickey's there, good things happen, right? So like Michael Jordan, obviously Magic and Larry, but like Michael Jordan became this thing that he was a pop icon. It became way bigger than basketball. At the same time, they started to expand it outside of just the United States. Basketball is a great game, but it's even bigger in Asia now. But that wasn't a thing 30 years ago, but having kind of that foresight. And I would say, back to the original point, knowing that we need to grow any of our brands, our sports, our athletes, our game, the NHL knows that. They've figured it out. They've been leaning into it a ton, right? Winter Classic. How cool is that, right? Getting creative, having these games in these outdoor communities at these collegiate stadiums. Like, that's a great way for a lukewarm fan of anything to be like, oh, that's kind of cool, right? In a way, that's what Vegas was. Where you're like, I'm not a hockey fan, but like in Vegas, it's a show, it's different. That's kind of cool. We're not going to do that in Edmonton. So it's kind of knowing the audience. And I think diversifying your audience, and the NHL's done a really good job lately, especially. He's a guy I really respect, a friend of mine, Steve Mayer. I think his title's like the chief content officer of the NHL. But like when there's a concert and there's a show and there's an integration with the team and it's the playoffs and they're out, he's the one who's really like championing a lot of that. And, he comes from the entertainment world. So he understands it. He loves the game. He honors the game. But he also, they brought him in a few years ago to kind of light that spark a little bit and expand the game further, right? Probably unarguably, maybe the Super Bowl, but like the NBA All-Star Game is one of the greatest sports entertainment fusion events ever. Dunk contest, and here's Kevin Hart, 3-point contest. Steph Curry's going to do this other thing with, and like you're mixing it all together with all these celebrities, and they speak for things, right? They stand up for things, and it drives some people crazy, but they're using their platform to make sure their voice is heard, and that's important. And so you're involving your athletes to be ambassadors of the brand, but also ambassadors of causes. And a big difference in all of sports, having worked in a lot of different sports, hockey players, you're one of 23, 25, 26, right? Any given night, legitimately, somebody could score 2 goals and be the first star of the game, right? It's like Kucherov's going to do it a lot for sure. But there were times Johnny Gord was doing it too when he was in Tampa Bay, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's and any given night it can be that case, right? Well, basketball, it's like it's probably going to be one of your top 2 or 3 guys, maybe a breakout 4th guy or a bench guy for a second. And there's only 12 guys anyway on the bench. So hockey is innately set up, next man up. I'm just part of the team. I'm one of them. So tonight it might be my night, but tomorrow it's going to be Joe's night. Next night it's going to be Steve's night. And basketball caters to big personalities and superstars standing into the spot because there's just the stage is smaller in that sense. Well, I shouldn't say that. The stage is bigger, the cast is smaller, who gets to have the lead roles. And hockey, and that's part of the beauty of the game, it's so fluid, it's this dance, anyone can do it, but it also limits Sidney Crosby to be the face. Even though he's the face, the game itself isn't asking you to do a touchdown celebration after you score or a gender reveal on Monday Night Football, right? Like that's not in the hockey culture per se. So I do think there needs to be an evolution of the younger generation of players coming in, maybe Matty Beniers and these kind of guys coming in at the Kraken can help that, get a little bit more on social media, develop a little bit more on the personalities, and fuse it together with the league's causes, the team's causes, and then just the personality of the players and the marketability, right? I just think the game itself, which is so beautiful, has also hindered the branding of the game to make it more approachable. And, there's all these studies now. People don't love teams as much as they love specific players, right? Everyone's traveling everywhere. The internet makes things small. So if you like LeBron James, you're going to like him on the Lakers or the Cavs or the Heat or wherever he goes. You're not a diehard Cavs fan and he leaves, you don't like him anymore. So that's changed too. So I think there's a lot we got to listen to as far as our audiences, and we have to brand and message and create stories and characters in ways that will pull people in and allow them to celebrate all the narratives that are happening. Let the sport happen, but then cater to your region, cater to your game. And let's have some fun. We're creating smiles and making people high five one another and dance and celebrate with strangers and have parades, right? Tampa Bay.
The boat parades, right?
Yeah,
the Lightning with their boat parades and how unique that is. And you're right, the high five. That's one of my favorite parts of being at a Lightning game was high fiving people and these strangers that you maybe on the street would ever be friends with, but you're all having a great time in there. And you mentioned the players too, having more of a personality. It's really interesting you mentioned that because I know when the Lightning drafted Isaac Howard this year as their 1st round pick, he got a lot of attention because he was talking about his outfit and he was saying he was the best dressed player there. And a lot of people were excited because he was bringing this personality that we don't typically see in hockey, just like you were talking about. So hopefully he becomes a great player for the Lightning and maybe can bring some of that for the NHL and he can become one of the faces.
I think he will. And I think, one of the biggest faces in a long time, and he just announced his retirement, PK Subban, that personality, the league needed. But that personality also, it kind of ruffles feathers with the old school guys. So these new guys coming in, I think there'll be sort of this passing of the torch and this expectation where okay, it's all right that he's doing a TikTok video in the dressing room right now. That is how you're going to grow the brand. And, the older players and the older season ticket members, there is an element of aging out. It's part of it. So to stay relevant, to stay connected to these leagues and these games, we got to keep up with the trends and we got to grow the game, which means we got to pull and bring along the younger audience and be like, hey, we're cool too. This is awesome. Look what we're doing. So it's a fusion of both where you honor tradition and you also honor and welcome innovation as you roll.
Right. And you got to be careful. You don't want to be like Juju Smith-Schuster and be dancing on logos and making TikTok videos, because that'll really upset some
There you
people.
go. There you go. Yep. There's a
But
line.
you mentioned tradition, and I have to ask you about this. I appreciate you coming on, taking some time out of your day to help us out here. But so tradition, right? The jerseys in hockey have always been, just a logo on the middle and this very unique thing, especially for the original six teams. They don't change much, but the NHL has ads on their jerseys now coming this upcoming year. I have been a huge opponent against this. I am not a fan of the jersey ads whatsoever. But I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on the ads. I don't know if you've seen any of the teams that have released them.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them do not look good at all. They're like
Yeah.
very different colors and they pop out. There's been a couple of teams, to their credit, like Toronto, Washington, and Columbus have, I think Vegas is not too bad either, but they kind of blend in and they're smaller. The Lightning still haven't announced theirs. Finger crossed that Jeff Finnick, who's an unbelievable owner, doesn't do jersey ads, but we'll see. But what are your thoughts on ads on jerseys for hockey?
Oh, it hurts my old-fashioned traditional soul.
Right.
It's so much money. It's so much branding. It's to pay these athletes what they get, to lower, beers at games. Like it offsets this and allows more revenue to do it. So I get it. I don't love it, but EPL's been doing it forever. Soccer's been doing it forever.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, this is awful. This is WNBA. They wwere way ahead of it. They started doing it way early. The NBA did it a few years ago, right? And there are good futures. Like the Cleveland Cavaliers are tied with Goodyear, I think. It's like, well, that's in Akron, Ohio. The color theme matches. It's like, well, that's a big sense of pride in that area.
Right.
I know hockey last year at the Kraken, we had like Amazon on the helmets, right? They were doing the helmet stickers.
The helmet ads were there last year, correct?
Right. And now they're going into the jerseys. Like I thought, and I can't mention all of them. I know the Kraken ones I thought were elegant on the helmets. Like I thought I would hate it. And I was like, okay, it's kind of monochrome. It fits. Like, I get it. It's not too bad. You wonder, like, will the NFL follow, right? They've got crazy broadcast deals that pay a lot, but like, there's a lot of money on the table there. And it is a business, unfortunately, right? We're not playing in the sandlot anymore. So
right.
I don't love it. It might be just one of those necessary evils to like purists like you and I. But if you're gonna do it with elegance and grace, right? Like, don't just be like, we're throwing this awful, horrible logo of some, ambulance chasing lawyer right on there because he's paying us the most. It's like, have like integrity in it. And I think most teams will get there and they'll figure it out. And if you don't have that, I think it'll stand out. And I think it devalues your brand. And your brand is everything. Because when players leave and move and, Johnny Hockey leaves Calgary, it's like, well, Calgary's a strong brand on its own. The Flame, people know what that is without him. He obviously was a big part of it, but they know what it is without him. So making sure that you honor the brand first, that's really important. So it's a good topic. This would be a good one to like open a couple.
We could do a whole show on just jersey.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. No, it's an interesting topic. It's going to be interesting how things play out over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I believe Edmonton is the only one that has said they're not going to do an ad. So it doesn't seem like everybody's doing it. But the season's right around the corner here. We still haven't heard a lot. The NHL likes to take their time with this kind of stuff. So we'll see where it goes. But I appreciate you saying that, it's about your brand. You want your brand to look good. And that's really, really important. I know for myself, I love buying all the jerseys and stuff. And I'm like, they better not make me buy a jersey with an ad on it because I would not. But that's
a good point.
Yeah, you're right though about the money. That's usually what it comes down to, right? It's all about that money, and well, maybe at least if they can use that money to continuing build the NHL's brand and really pushing up their product, then it'll be worth it, right? If they can at least do that, we can deal with the ads. But
it's kind of, you got to make money. It's a business, but what you do with that money can make the game more inclusive. Can market it to a different region. Can again, make beer prices cheaper, right? Or make the game more approachable, whatever that is. Like then if the point of it all, we can make money, you got to pay for things, sure, right? But like if it can grow it with a good purpose, then maybe it's not the worst evil,
Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe we'll have you come back on the next couple of years here and we'll have to talk about it again
See
and go
where it
more
is. Yeah,
detail. But
absolutely.
last thing I wanted to talk to you about, I know you said you're not really an X's and O's guys when it comes to hockey, but
Right.
because we are on a Lightning podcast, I want to get
Yes.
what are your thoughts on the Lightning for this upcoming season and how they might do? They've been to the Stanley Cup Finals the last 3 years in a row. Any predictions for me?
Lightning in 6 over the Knights. No,
I love
I'll
it.
say this. I'll say this. Hockey is a battle through the playoffs. I mean, it is you emotionally, physically, blood, sweat, tears. And the fact that 3 years in a row, Tampa's made it is extraordinary. The fact that they've won it 2 times, I want to read the book. Is Cooper still there? I can't even remember.
Yep, he's
Yeah.
still there.
So like I want to read the book on like how do you keep these players focused, healthy, and hungry this many long seasons in a row?
Right.
Like, how do you let them reset themselves? How do you give them time off? How do you, people talk about like managing the minutes in the NBA? Like, that's not really a thing in hockey, like maybe goalies, but like that. How are you doing this? Like, you shouldn't be able to make it 3 years in a row in today's game, in today's world, with the bloodbath that is this sport, particularly playoffs. So,
Yeah.
you know, I hope they do well because it's a great organization. It's great for the sport, right? I got good friends who are working there. But at some point you'd think that like the tank is you're gonna run out. Like it's just to keep this level at this height, man, it's tricky. So I don't know if it's a fade because everybody kind of does it, then you come back,
Right.
or if it's like a burnout real fast and it's like, oh, they're really not very good this year. And they're good, they're just tired, right? In a way that like when you have short off seasons, you just can't prepare for. So, yep, I'll go back to my original answer, Jake. For all the Lightning fans, Cup in 6.
I love it. But you're right. That is a big factor that people have been talking about. And somehow the Lightning have been able to avoid it for so long because people thought that was going to happen this last season and they still made it back to the finals.
It's
So
crazy.
who knows? Maybe those young guys will help spark them once again here. But Jonny, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and coming on our show. We really appreciate it. It was awesome talking to you. Hopefully maybe we can have you back on in the near future. But thank you so much for coming on.
Jake, my pleasure, man. I'm proud of you. Good luck at Full Sail. Keep killing it. Keep doing your thing. May your dreams come true, man. You are rocking and rolling. It was an honor to hang out with you and share some energy, brother. Take care of yourself.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you everybody for watching the video and listening. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on more content just like this. Do hit that like button if you did enjoy as well. Tell your friends, tell your family to come check out the interview. Hope all you have a great rest of your day. And remember, your Tampa Bay Lightning are right around the corner for the season. Go Bolts.